Welcome back to the Squeeze Zone. This is a recap of episode 4. I did 24 this last week, and we had a crazy week. Most of the stocks reacted normally, more or less based on indicators I use with my chart. But we also saw a lot of volatility due to that GameStop short squeeze. But I'm not going to get into that. That's not why we're here. We're going to go over my predictions. I nailed 20 out of 24. Some of them small wins, others huge wins. Let's get to it. We got Kimberly Clark. This is one of the first of my few misses from this last week. Last week, prior to earnings, it was sitting at 132. I actually saw it going lower, but that one crushed earnings, went up to 141 before dropping at the end of the week. Next up, we got Boot Barn. I did this one just for fun. Nailed this one. Prior to earnings, we were sitting at $58.35. I was looking for $61. We hit $62. Next up, we got Brown and Brown. Brown and Brown was a small win. Prior to earnings, we were looking at $47.49. We got up just a little over $48, even though my target was $50. So slight win on that one, off on my target. We got General Electric next. This was another pretty big win. Prior to earnings, we were looking at $11.11. I was aiming for $13. We got all the way up to $12.24. Next up, we got Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson, huge win on this one. Prior to earnings was $163.55. I was aiming for $168. We got all the way up to $173. Next up, we got or 3M. This one was another miss. Prior to earnings, we were sitting at 169. I was aiming for 155. It shot up to 187. So they did great. Next up, we got Verizon. Verizon, prior to earnings, was at $57.47. I was aiming for $60. Small win on this one. We got up to $58.62. Next up, we got American Express. American Express was a huge win on this one. Prior to earnings, we were sitting at $126.14. My target for this one was $122. I should have set this one a little bit lower. It hit all the way down to 112 after earnings. Next up, we got NextEra Energy. This was another win, small one. Prior to earnings was $84.21. Our target was $89. Hit $87.68. Next up, we have AMD. AMD prior to earnings was at $92.79. My target for this one was $85, and we hit that one pretty much dead on. Lowest it got that week was $85 right after earnings. Next up, we have Microsoft. Microsoft was another big win. Prior to earnings was at $225.95. I was expecting it to go up to $237, and it shot all the way up to $242. Next up, we got Starbucks. Starbucks, prior to earnings was at $103.91. My target for this one was $101, and we got all the way down to $96 after earnings. Next up, we got Boeing. Boeing was fairly predictable. This was an easy win for this one. Prior to earnings, we're at $205.84. My target was $192. We got all the way down to $191.73. Next up, we got AT&T. This was a small win. Prior to earnings, we're at $28.93. It shot up a little bit early in the week, but it still managed to drop down after earnings and hit $28, even though my target was $26, but still technically a win for that week. Next up, we have Apple. Apple was a win, technically. We hit, prior to earnings, we were at $139. My target was $141, small move up. We did hit $145, but that was right before the whole market started to drop. Okay, next up we got Tesla. This was unfortunately some bad news I saw coming on last week. Prior to earnings, we were sitting at 846. My target for this was 800, and we hit 793 after earnings. Just as a heads up, I do see it going much further down. So be cautious with Tesla. Next up, we have Facebook. Facebook prior to earnings, I was expecting to go up. We were at 274. We hit 200. My target was 290. We hit 286 before it dropped at the end of the week. So that was another win. Next up, we have Levi's. Levi's prior to earnings, we were at $21. I was expecting to drop on this one down to $19. We hit $19.71. Next up, we have American Airlines. This was a big miss. Prior to earnings, we're at $15.82. My target for this one was $13, and it jumped all the way up to $21.80. Big move for American Airlines. Next up, we have McDonald's. McDonald's prior to earnings was at $213.38. My target for this one was $200, and it dropped all the way down to $202. Next up, we got MasterCard. MasterCard prior to earnings was at $328.99. My target for this one was $297. We hit $312. So not as aggressive as my target, but still a win. Next up, we got Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines prior to earnings was at $47.39. This was another miss, unfortunately. I was expecting to go higher to $50, but instead it dropped down to $43.73. So another miss, unfortunately, for that one. Next up, we have 1-800-Flowers. I was expecting a dump from 1-800-Flowers. Prior to earnings, it had a huge run-up. If we didn't get that huge run-up, we would have hit my target for sure, but we still ended lower and very near my target. So we were at $31.67 at the start of the week. Target was $29. We hit $30. And that was after it ran all the way up to nearly $40 that week. So still a win, even with that huge run-up. Imagine if it didn't have that huge run-up. Would have been even better. Next up, we got Visa. Visa prior to earnings was at $202.02. My target for this one was $189, and we hit $193. So that was another big win. Lastly, we got Caterpillar. Prior to earnings, we were at $191.94. My target was $186, and we hit $182. So, yeah, that was a solid week, 20 for 24. So I'm keeping pretty consistent with that 80%. One of these weeks, we're going to get up to 90% or maybe 100%. Anyways, thanks for checking out the recap. We got predictions coming out here following this video. Good luck. Don't buy or sell purely based on what you hear. Make sure to do your own research first before you do any investing. And good luck out there.